Right. Okay, recorder's on, streamer's on. I better send the link out. Right, there we go. Everything's all set.
Cool. Hopefully the chat room can hear us.
Hopefully. It's on. Yeah, probably an advert break.
Yeah.
I keep meaning to look at the Google Hangouts as a way of doing this, but this sort of doesn't use Skype then. But then I'm not quite sure how then I'd capture the audio to use for good enough quality for the podcast. So, and as I already bandwidth limited, I think a Google Hangout might just be pushing the technology too far, really.
Yeah, possibly.
But if any, I might give it a try one evening. Maybe we'll just do a test session with it or something like that. So,
Just seen Richard's message in the chat room.
Well, actually, considering that, we're on pre iPhone 5 announcements, so I think it should be every time we say Windows Phone 8.
Yeah.
I think that's going to come up tonight. Anyway, I better introduce you. So, Jason Coombs, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ian. Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to be back. Now, as we were just starting this, Richard said he's got a bottle of cider there and taking a drink every time someone says iPhone 5. But I do think we might be saying Nokia a few more times.
Yeah, I think I just replied saying I've got a pint of Stella. We'll be taking a drink every time we say Nokia.
Now, we're recording this on Tuesday, 11th? Tuesday evening, 8 o'clock UK time. Join us in the chat room. If you're already joining in the chat room, then you already know this. But if it's on the podcast, then you might not have done. Or you could be doing both.
Multitasking.
Yes. So we will touch on the next iPhone, but obviously you're not a big fan of the iPhone anyway. And actually, I'm not currently an iPhone user even. I'm an Android man. So
we need Jose.
Yeah, but we'll perhaps speculate at what we will see, and then next week's show we can talk about it. Because on last week's show we speculated about the new Lumia devices, so we can talk about those. Plus, there's some Raspberry Pi news, XBMC news, Seaton companion news, Amazon Kindles. Quite a bit to talk about tonight. But let's start with the Lumia because I know you're such a big fan of that stuff. So Windows Phone. So tell us, what did Nokia announce last week at their launch event?
Sure. So yeah, there was a big announcement last Wednesday afternoon, I think it was, for the UK. Despite me saying I thought it was the evening, and I was all sat at my desk ready to listen and watch this thing live, and then got dragged out on a work road trip to go and track down 4 Samsung Galaxies. So not only did I not get to see it, I was also cheating.
cheating
on the Windows Phone. So I've had to catch up with it subsequently, but yeah. So I think by this time most of the stuff had kind of leaked out, but basically Nokia announced one really top-end device, the Lumia 920, as a follow-up to the 900, and then also later on, although really had the minimum amount of time, was the Lumia 820, which both models are really just a kind of an evolution of their former, but I think the 920 is probably a bigger leap forward in many ways than the 800. So, but I'm sure we'll touch on this. But I think for me, it was probably the biggest thing is what they didn't announce, really. But we'll talk about that in a bit.
Okay, so let's. So yeah, they did the usual thing, didn't they, where they talked about some other non-Windows Phone stuff at the beginning of the keynote, just to lull everybody quietly into like a bit of a sleep, I think.
Yeah.
And then they talked about the devices. So let's look at the two devices. So the flagship's the 920. So What's in the 920, or what's the spec of the 920?
Sure. So it's got a dual core Qualcomm processor. Obviously, with Windows Phone 8 now supporting dual cores, I think that was kind of inevitable. 4.5-inch screen, which they describe as a Nokia Pure Motion HD Plus, which they say is better than HD resolution. I believe it's they haven't actually said whether or not it's AMOLED or whether or not it's just a standard LCD screen. I'm not entirely sure. There doesn't seem to be much information, but so yeah, 2,000 milliamp battery, and coming in a multitude of colours. But I think one of the real talking points that they spent a lot of time on and has subsequently caused quite a bit of controversy is the new PureView 8 megapixel camera that's on the back, which looks absolutely amazing. I mean, the Nokia 808, the PureView camera, is clearly an amazing device, but it looks ugly, to say the least. But what they've managed to do is kind of take that technology and really adapt it for a more cleaner device. So no longer the kind of the 41 megapixels, I think it was. It's the standard 8 megapixels, but really the PureView was really about the technology behind it. It isn't necessarily about the megapixel of the camera. It's about the post processing, the ability to capture light, and also the fact that they've managed to mount the whole camera on little tiny springs, so that it kind of neutralizes any handshake, so that the shutter can stay open for a slightly longer period of time and lets in as much light as possible, and that you kind of maximize pictures in the worst kind of conditions. And they've certainly shown some examples off in those really bad conditions, and they certainly look really good.
I mean, it looks, if you just take away the sort of the enthusiast geek tech focus of it, if you were just as a consumer looking at this device, it does look like the best smartphone camera device out there. I mean, I don't know what to get ready for a drink, Rich, but I don't know what the iPhone 5 is going to be. But if you just look at it, what we know now, it's got to be one of the best phones out there for taking pictures and video with.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly leaps ahead of anything that Windows Phone has to offer. And everyone's kind of said when Nokia, I'll take a drink, when Nokia joined the Windows Phone team, it was everyone had thought that the first Lumias were going to have an amazing camera, and I think it's general consensus that they've been not necessarily disappointing, but not what people were expecting, given how good the N95 was. But yeah, I mean, as Rich points out, really the low light performance with its what is it, the back sensor, and the fact that the lens can the shutter can stay open that much longer. I think it, other than what Apple might announce tomorrow, it does really set a new benchmark for almost to the point where unless you're a real I don't know what the equivalent of an audiophile is in the camera world, but unless you're a real top end photographer, it could easily replace carrying a dedicated camera around with you.
Yeah, I mean the low light, I think that is really a useful feature, because the flashes don't take the flash is never that good on a smartphone compared to a proper camera with an SLR, say, with a flash. So the low light performance is really handy, and also it just makes it a fun phone to use if you're at a party or a tech event or whatever, and you're taking pictures. If it's got good low light support, I think that's good. So I think from the camera side of it, it looks really nice. And I think the other thing that I do like about it is the form factor. It's not an iPhone clone. It's definitely a unique form factor.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it is becoming more and more difficult to differentiate the looks of the film, looks of different phones and everything. But I know the Lumia 920 gains a bit of a curved glass effect, and obviously has the NFC stuff which they showed off. It's got the wireless charging, and I think that that speaker where they just laid the phone on top and it starts charging, and NFC pairs with the speaker and starts playing music. There were some really good demonstrations.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing that, and the it's got the charging, hasn't it? The inductive charging as well.
Yes, yeah. I think one of my few disappointments was the fact that they've dropped the cyan color, which I really liked on the previous phones.
Yeah, I've seen a few people say. Go ahead.
So No, go on.
I'm just saying a few people say that that the cyan is the most popular colour of of the current range, and they've dropped it, which seems a bit strange.
Yeah, no, I thought that was quite strange. Although it could be that they're holding it back, that they're going to announce it along with a particular carrier or something. I know there was some news that broke on there today. Just to pick up on Rich's comment about the fact that the 920 doesn't have a micro SD slot, and I have to give credit to Rafael Rivera on WP Central, because I heard this today. I heard him say it today that apparently Windows Phone only supports a maximum of 32 gigabytes of storage, and the 920 already has that in. So a micro SD slot would have been redundant, whereas the 820 I think only has, I think it was 8 or 16, and therefore the micro SD slot does actually serve a purpose. And also with the Lumia 920 being a closed device, I'm not quite sure. It would have kind of maybe broken the lines for it to have that slot hidden away somewhere.
Yeah, but if 32 gig is the max, and then it's already got that, like you said, it's a waste of time. It's a shame though, because but then I suppose 32 gig is pretty good. On my Galaxy, it's a 16, I think, and then I've got an extra SD card in there as well, because I have filled that up, especially with the pictures. And that's, I suppose that's the problem, is that you take good, high quality pictures, that's going to take up a lot of storage space. But I suppose that answer makes sense. Russell's saying, why build a limit of 32 gig in? That's interesting. I'm not quite sure that would be, considering that Windows Phone 8 is based on the Windows 8 kernel, where storage is effectively unlimited.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it does seem a strange one, and it's the first time I've heard it. But I know Raphael's quite, has quite good contacts within the Windows Phone team. So, I'm going to take his information as gospel for now. So, but it does it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I will say, my Omnia 7 had 8 gig, and that was a real strain to stick within that. With the Lumia 800 having 16, that I struggled to fill it up. So I think 32 gigabytes would be fine for me. But I also know that you get something like the iPhone, where it's got, I think it's 64, isn't it? I think is the biggest
currently. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you need to be able to compete.
Yeah.
But whether or not it's some kind of driver issue. I mean, you only got to go back a few years where PCs could only handle, certain sizes of drive, so it could be something to do with that, with the ARM architecture, or the fact that Windows 8 on ARM, which is what Windows Phone 8 is kind of based on, as you say, is on tablets they might well have only architected it to work with certain size drives.
Yeah, it's video. I think I found when I was on holiday, I took a lot of video clips, and they really took the storage, especially when you're recording them in the higher bit rates. And so, yeah, a good question from Russell is, I wonder if that's the limit in Windows RT tablets. I don't know. That would be, I think, quite small for a tablet, but you never know. The iPad is 16 or 32 or 64, so maybe we'll have to see.
I think we also do see the influence, and I question its validity, given especially in a country like this where we are still struggling for bandwidth. But it does seem to be that all this storage is having an influence on how much storage we get put into devices, because the assumption, rightly or wrongly, is that most of the stuff you'll just stick in the cloud, stick on SkyDrive or Dropbox or somewhere.
Yeah.
Just stream your music, stream your own personal music collection. Hasn't been announced yet, but I'd be amazed if SkyDrive doesn't get some kind of music streaming facility.
Yeah, I think so. No, before we come back to the Windows 8 stuff, just tell us about the other phone, the 820.
Yeah, so the 820 is slightly, it's certainly the low end of the phone, but it's still, a really nice phone. I mean, I absolutely love the Lumia 800. I'm back on it from the Omnia 7, and I'd forgotten just what a lovely device it is. So I think I'm right in saying it's going to be a 4-inch screen. I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah, I think it was slightly smaller screen than the 920.
Yeah, certainly smaller anyway. So still dual core. Doesn't have the pure view camera features. Doesn't out of the box have the wireless charging, but it does have replaceable back covers. And you can buy some of those back covers that will have an NFC chip in it, and secondly, the wireless charging sensor. So yeah, I mean, again, it looks. I thought it looked like a really nice device. You know, it's I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I think it looked quite nice, and I think on the storage size and sort of the screen size, it looked quite a nice device. It's I think it's going to some of the extra features that Nokia have put in, like the City Lens and things like that, are going to make a big difference. So regardless of which phone you get, both look quite nice. So I think if I was going to choose one, I'd prefer the 920. But then you've got the 820. I still think is a good phone and probably be a better price point as well.
Yeah, I think that it's probably a good choice to allow the addition of NFC and wireless charging, because you know they do need a relatively mid-range phone, but it's nice that people can still kind of upgrade it to get some of those extra high-end features, and, you know, maybe save on the cost of the phone up front.
So
I think yeah, I mean, for me, it'll be the 920 just because I like the best. But the 820 is definitely, you know, a phone I think anyone could be happy with.
And I would imagine they'll probably update the currently the 610 is the low end model, so maybe they'll update that at some point as well.
Yeah, sure. Just to respond to Russell's comment about Windows Phone, I had heard that it could potentially go up to 7-inch. Really, I think anything above that, and this is only my own personal view, it's not something that I've necessarily read, but I think really once you get to 9 or 10-inch, then that's really where Windows RT and Windows 8 is going to be aimed at. You know, Microsoft has clearly just decided that Windows Phone isn't going to be scaled up to be its tablet OS, and I think, you know, they to try and stop confusion that, you know, you've got these two 10-inch tablets side by side, and one of them can run Windows Phone apps, but the other one can run Windows RT apps. I think would be too much of an issue. Maybe in the future when we start getting to kind of like Windows 9 timeframes, where hopefully they've kind of got a common application platform, same as iPhone and an iPad. That maybe then you might start to see some bigger devices where that app ecosystem just be a problem. I'd be interested to see a 7-inch Windows Phone. I think Ian would be queuing it to buy it because you like big phones. So.
Yeah, I think if 7-inch. I mean, I've got a 7-inch device, and that's the Nexus tablet, and I don't really. I think that's fine for a tablet size. I think once you get above 5.5-inch for a phone, I think that's getting a bit big as well. So it makes perfect sense to me to have up to sort of 5.5-inch for Windows Phone, and then anything like 7-inch would be definitely an RT tablet.
Yeah, I see Rich has been doing some Googling for us. So he says that the micro SD spec SD8C cards can only go up to 32 gigabytes. To go above that, you need SDXC, which is 32 gigabytes to 2 terabytes. So thanks, Rich.
Yeah, that makes sense. I suppose if you wanted the best of both worlds, then you want a 32 gig phone with a 32 gig SD card, or although I suppose if you got I think like 32 gig is a pretty reasonable size, and with cloud storage and everything else. The problem I found is my pictures are all stored in Dropbox and the video clips, so it automatically syncs them up to Android. But of course, I like to keep them. I don't want to delete them, but that takes up space. So you still always got that issue of space. But I think what my next plan is to use SkyDrive and shift to archive to SkyDrive, so I'd have the two services running then.
Yeah. I mean, Rich is asking that why can't you just stick to 32 gigabyte cards and use Drive extender? Or well, yeah, they've got storage spaces now, and it's built on Windows 8, so why not?
Yeah, and then he says they could drop it next week as well.
Yeah. They also had Joe Belfry on hand to demonstrate a few of the Windows 8 features, and a couple of things that kind of very quickly got dropped in the conversation, wasn't made a big deal of. Is that one of the issues with Windows Phone 7 is that although you can set your pictures to auto upload to SkyDrive, it's a scaled down version, and there was about, I think, one brief sentence mentioned very quickly that now pictures are uploaded in full scale in the original quality.
Right.
And it was really a very, I mean, he was talking about pictures he'd taken and then showing that they were available on SkyDrive, and he said, and they're uploaded in full quality. But I thought that might have deserved a bit more attention, but it was almost like just a throwaway comment.
To be honest, I've kind of forgotten that was the case because, like I just mentioned about the Dropbox, that it just uploads whatever format I take them in on the phone. It doesn't do any conversion. So I'd forgotten that was the case with SkyDrive.
Yeah, which I think is maybe that was a design decision taken to reduce the amount of data being uploaded. Obviously, with most people on kind of 3G connections. But going back to my old Windows Mobile, when I used to have Mesh installed, I used to have that configured to automatically upload pictures, and that just did it steadily and slowly in the background. That's a problem. There's no background, is there? No true multitasking on Windows Phone.
No.
But I mean, the other interesting things they showed off was the integration with these lenses directly into the camera software, which I thought looked really interesting and kind of made it a whole easy to use and really kind of builds on the ethos that Windows Phone is, that you shouldn't have to go and find an app. You should just it should just be a fluid switch between one purpose and another. Yeah,
I'm just gonna. Apparently the video's frozen and the audio's really chopping. Yours is a bit intermittent as well. So what I'm going to do is just going to do a quick restart of my router. So we're going to get disconnected for a minute and I'll call you back.
Okay.
So chat room people, you're going to have silence for a bit. So I'm just going to so I'll kick this off and I'll call you straight back.
Sure.